Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and I am here with the special deck. I'm really excited about this deck, and to be honest, this is probably the first deck in a very long time, if ever, that I'm actually kind of nervous. I'll take that back. I know I felt the same way with the Marielle, because I had the Marielle Tarot on my list for a very long time, and I was kind of nervous about it because I felt like it was going to be a really powerful experience, but I was also kind of nervous that it was going to be a letdown, and also you know, just wondering how it was going to hit. So I should have had a pair of scissors or something ready, because this is not going to slide off. Sharp knife. Alright, so of course it has a sticker on here that says the Goliath Tarot deck. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude and say a big thank you for supporting me on my journey. This is a very special reason you have acquired this deck, so please treasure it and keep it safe. You have a piece of my soul in your hands. How amazing is that? Never forget the power that's in the magic of your own creation. And then here is a print. Oh, it's gorgeous. This is a 7 of Pentacles, the rewarded frog. So he's been waiting patiently, right? And his reward is he's snatched a hold of a fly. That's pretty awesome. Oops, and here's the deck. Huge box. When I picked it up at the post office, I'm like, I don't know if this is inside of another box. So it does come sealed like this. The back says the Goliath Tarot deck, a shamanic shadow deck, written and illustrated by Goliath. The top part has Goliath Tarot deck, an alchemical shamanic shadow tarot manifesto featuring 95 cards, suited for spiritual divination, mystical exploration, readings, and guidance. And includes a guidebook, so then there's some of the images there. Goliath, and then some more of the images on the side, and then of course the front showing the Goliath Tarot deck. See how, yeah, it's a magnet closure, which is amazing for a self-published deck, so you don't often see those. And oh, it just stands up amazing. It just, like, this is what I see. Sorry, I'm trying to. It stands up gorgeous. Goliath Tarot deck. And then on the inside here it says, a touch of magic, a touch of shadow, a twinkle of beauty, a spark in tarot. A feeling of mystery, a feeling of ponder. Shuffle the cards and take a wander. I was thinking it was going to say a feeling of wonder, but behind it's making me ponder and wander. It's pretty awesome. I love stuff like that. We have the guidebook on top, and we have the accent of purple. I don't know if you can see that here, but the accent is purple. So I would say impact factor on first impression, like of opening something and, you know, kind of opening up. It definitely has that impact factor, that experience, feeling as if I am getting ready to experience something. So we can pull, these are big cards. So here's the guidebook, the Goliath Tarot deck guidebook, written and illustrated by Goliath. Art is how I see myself, how I express myself. It's my interpretation of the world I'm in. Art and creation are the only thing that I never get sick of. They heal me and lift me, keeping me buoyant every time I'm down or feeling like I'm sinking. I invite you into my world, my very own tarot manifesto. All the cards in this deck talk to each other and hold a fragment of my heart and soul in them. This is my gift to you. Welcome to my Goliath Tarot deck. And so then we have the guidebook, which is the, ooh, beautiful. That's going to be very hard for me to read. I'm going to have to go get my, the whole thing is going to be hard for me to read without my glasses, so I shall hunt them down. But you look at those spreads. Looks amazing. So we'll look a little more closely at this. Let me pull everything else out. But you do get a decent size image of the card next to it, which is lovely. Again, I really appreciate that, because you want to shuffle your cards, so you don't have to go try to find the card when you want to sit through and read. And so to have a nice clear illustration of the card is really something that I appreciate in a deck. So there we have that. It's a little bit different in that it's this kind of this way of reading. And I will say on the beginning, just visually, the print is very small, obviously so that he could get a lot of text into a compact book. So I completely understand that, and obviously not everybody has my eyesight. I will get my glasses so that we can take a better look at that. Then we have the ribbon to continue pull out the cards, which again I will say are very large, but this is one of those decks that I think is meant to be large. I feel that way about the Margaret Peterson. It's kind of meant to be big and large. And I think I felt that way also about the Mary L. I was actually a little bit disappointed when I trimmed it. It's one of the few that I've been disappointed by. But it had such bad borders. I'm going to carefully do that. And pull that off. The wrapping has not damaged the bottom or the top of the cards, which unfortunately sometimes does happen, right? The inside is a plastic insert. I know not everybody likes plastic inserts, but I will tell you one thing that I do like about them is that very often when people use cardboard inserts, what happens is cards slide, they slide underneath. And I would personally prefer to have a plastic insert that the cards aren't going to slide versus one in which I have to dig out the cards and risk damaging the cards every time I try to get them out. So I know that's not everybody's favorite. These are so large too that you really could just put them in here with the book, which is, to be honest, probably how I will do it, because the plastic does feel sort of like not something that I want to have in this particular deck, because I probably will get a bag for this or wrap it with a cloth and then set it down in here. So actually I have an idea of a cloth I might use for that. So there we have it. I have to say, really gorgeous production value, again, especially for a self-published deck. I think that this is beautifully done. The experience of opening up is very impactful, which is again lovely in a deck unboxing. Okay, gorgeous background or backing, has beautiful gilding on the sides, and then of course it's black and white. Now I loved, can you see how there are some cards that are white and some cards that are black bordered? I actually really love this. There's something very organic feeling about it. I also feel like I'm holding a pile of photographs or again pieces of artwork. I love that. I can see, I'm sure there are some people that would bother. For me, I just think that is just visually amazing. And you can see that the border, whether it be black or white, is very thin. I will obviously not be trimming this deck. It is gorgeously gilded, and those are very thin borders. It just makes it feel like a frame. So I'm not going to jump ahead yet to those. Very, very large. I don't know what to compare it to. Let me grab a standard Oracle deck that everybody might know. This is the new Spirit Animal deck by Jody Bergsma, which is probably my largest, and this is just actually slightly taller and just a hair thinner than the Goliath, just a hair. So this Oracle deck, which again is the Spirit Animal, again it's the one by Jody Bergsma. And this is probably the biggest card deck I own, and it's just a little bit taller than the Goliath and a slightly thinner. So that, if that gives you an idea, this is a 5x7 print of one of my prints. And so you can see there you go. So hopefully with those three, it gives you some idea. They're large. Again, I think that they are best to be large. I think that that's going to work in their favor. And we got a little peek at some of the extra cards with the yes and a no card. Peeking ahead. They are glossy. They feel glossy, similar. It's a nice gloss, similar to the Cesaburito. The Cesaburito is a gloss cardstock, but it shuffles like a dream. And it feels, so far, I haven't shuffled it yet, but it feels similar to that style of cardstock. Okay, I've zoomed in on the guidebook so we can take a look at it. So he's got that here. So then he goes into what is shadow work, the integration of his shadow story. The nature of this deck is leaning towards the shadow, and the artwork is specifically drawn using animals and the natural world to depict the archetypes and emotions of each card. Now, the cards that I've seen, I think, are just going to be powerful in general and work in shadow in the ways that I think of in the dark of the forest. And so what I hope to see, and what I think I've seen so far in the cards, is that this should be something that could be used on both sides of the spectrum, that can go into shadow and go into light as well, because I think what we're really looking for is balance. So we shall see. I will say reading this small of text on this black for someone like me with bad eyesight is quite difficult. This is actually easier. So then he goes into an introduction about creating the deck. If this be magic, let it be an art lawful as eating. The Winter's Tale by Shakespeare. Understanding the cards. It says there are quite a few different styles and structures of tarot decks, from Aleister Crowley Thoth Tarot to the Marseille Tarot. My deck is based on the traditional Rider-Waite deck created by Dr. Arthur Edward Waite and designed by Pamela Coleman Smith, a member of the Golden Dawn. So this is Rider-Waite Smith based, but from the cards I've seen, you can see the Rider-Waite Smith, but he's definitely gone off and I think has his own voice in the system. My deck also features some add-on cards that are more abstract and can be incorporated in the shuffle of your cards if you choose, or you can take them out and just use a standard 78 cards. Also in my deck you'll find 2 simple yes and no cards. These are in there for definitive clarity. Sometimes we just need a simple yes or no on things and may not have the time to do a full reading. He goes into some spreads. Again, the Celtic Cross. There's a spiritual guidance reading. There's a Celtic Cross. There is a basic 3-card reading, a year ahead reading, yes and no divination reading. Place them, use a pendulum in between so it can go either way. Outward influencing reading, face down mix up, to do or not to do spread. So a nice chunk of spreads there in 2 small pages, right? And then it goes into the cards itself. But in general, you can see that we have the number, we have the title, we have Lamat. In terms of, we have the traditional title in there. We also have the English title as well as a descriptive title that he's added in. So we have the Fool or the Eternal Vagabond. We have keywords, a bunch of keywords here: adventure, journey, new beginnings, freedom, to seek, to search, a hatchling, breaking through the egg, so on. Lots of good keywords there. We have planet, air, planet, element, zodiac, and stones. I'm assuming that the planet, element, and signs are Golden Dawn based, because he did say that's what he's based it on. And then he has some crystals that would work with that as well. And then he goes into a description of the card, a nice amount of description, and then some reversed keywords. So we have 3 titles basically. We have the Fool, the number 0, El Fool, and then the Eternal Vagabond here. So it's kind of got a script that would be a little bit hard to read, especially when you get into some of the other ones. We'll see if he talks about that. We do have the copyright here, but I will say it is so small and so faint in the black that it's not distractive. You can see it more in the white. You know me, I am not a fan of copyrights on especially the faces of tarot decks, but I will say that that's pretty unobtrusive for that, which is a kind of a pet peeve of mine, but that one is one I think I wouldn't have an issue with. So here we go again. I've actually gone through this once as well as done a few readings with it, and I have to say I am really loving it. There are some misses for me, which I'll talk about, but I don't think they're misses so much as just asking me to step sideways and go in a different direction. And so I'm really excited to be working with this. But let's zoom in, and I'm going to try to do a fairly, quicker than 2 hours flip through of this deck. So here we have the Fool, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. I personally think that it is a perfect Fool. His face is just joyous. He is just diving off of the top of the waterfall. One of the things that I do like about the guidebook, and I have to say I have not read it from cover to cover yet, but I've read a few of them, and I would say this is definitely one in which you want to spend some time reading the guidebook. A lot of the times he does address the images directly. The keywords I think are really good and helpful, and so I definitely think this is one that's worth really kind of working with and seeing where he was going, because one of the things he does throughout the guidebook is he really asks you questions, and you get the sense that he really wants the cards to be somewhat open-ended in terms of you saying, what do you think is going to happen next? Like, what do you think the context is going on here, and what do you think is going to happen? And leaving that sort of access to questioning open, which I think is fantastic. So again, we do have 3 titles. There's one, these two are really pretty much similar in that we have the Fool in sort of an Arabic script that can sometimes be hard to read. And then in the Major Arcana, you have the number and the name of the title. I'm not sure why we have L and then English, the Fool, instead of the Fool, but probably because of the name of the tarot, I'm guessing, that ties that together. We have then a sort of name that he's given it, sort of a subtitle, which I quite like most of those. I think they're really helpful. I will say with my eyesight, which is not the greatest, sometimes this font and this size becomes a little bit difficult, but again, I've got bad eyesight, so I can't blame things on my eyesight. There is a copyright here, which I'm not a huge fan of, copyrights on the fronts of decks. It is so small in the black, you can hardly see it. And then even in the white, it's not horrible. It's just not my favorite, it's not my favorite thing. But this is a very unobtrusive of all the decks where I've seen it, on the front. This is not something that is going to bother me that much. So the 3 different fonts, I think it would have been nice to have a single font across, or maybe these 2 fonts and then one in the middle, and maybe a font that was easier on the eyes, depending on people's eyesight. But so I think that's one thing. But in the end, you know what this is. It's the Fool, and I actually really like his subtitle. So here we have the Eternal Vagabond. Here we have the Magician, or the Alchemical Master for the Magician, obviously. I think it's really gorgeous and powerful. We do get the first indication that this is not a deck of animals in the natural environment. Now, some of them are. There are images where animals are interacting with their natural environment, but many of them have sort of headdresses and jewelry and things of that nature, similar to what you would see in Colette Baron Reid's New Spirit Animals. some of them more powerful versus sweet, but then there are some that are more of that prettiness factor. So this is extremely powerful. I think of a magician. He does talk about in the guidebook how using animals was so important, especially in something like this, where you very often see the magician almost always as a man. And so while I still think you get a sense of masculine power here, not gender, but masculine energy. So that if you work with masculine and feminine energy, it's very clear here. But at the same time, it's not, it's not very clearly associated with a man versus a woman. So that's something he talks about there. And you can really, I think, see this in the High Priestess, which is the crescent moon cat. I do believe that she still looks very feminine, right? Whilst this could also be a male or a female, it has a feminine feel, and this does have a masculine feel. And so the two of them together, I think, still give you that indication should you want to, but it's not something that's confining. Very, very otherworldly. I love how the trees, the shadowed trees still looks dark in the light, so you still have the towers, you have the moon, you have the Ankh. So I think it's very High Priestessy energy there. Here we have the Empress, the alchemical mother. This I think is really powerful. He talks about it being a white peacock. And then of course you can see the what's being born inside of her. He really worked a long time to try to figure out how he wanted to approach the Empress here, but it's very much an internal energy that's at work. Here we have the Emperor, the ruling father. Again, you can see we have cloaks here and spears. So this is obviously not an antelope in its natural environment, but I think you certainly get the Emperor feel from this figure. Now, the Hierophant was one of those. This is the Master of the Keys. I love the subtitle, the Master of the Keys. I think it's fantastic. We have lots of eyes going on here. He talks a little bit about really wanting this to be open and a little bit disturbing, right? Because you do have a little bit of a disturbing aspect, a little bit something that should rattle you with the fives, I think, in the Hierophant, because you have both that sense of tradition and continuity of religious type organizations, but also we have the shadow sides of that, which can be very difficult and uncomfortable. And yet we also do have the idea of mentors and teachers and such. So I think this is a real powerful way to be unsettling, but not to the degree of, say, the Marielle Hierophant, which is one that I love the Marielle, but when I am reading with that deck, I am always thinking, please don't let me get the Hierophant. And again, I understand the concept behind the card, and I think it's a powerful version of the card, but I don't particularly like that image. And so I think the same sort of, there's an unsettledness to this Hierophant, but at the same time, it's really powerful. You do have the concept of the vulture that's here. You have the teeth, the human teeth here. So there are things that are meant to unsettle, but at the same time there is a sense of knowledge here with all of the eyes in this hood, and he asks that question like, is this a hood or is this part of his actual head, and these kinds of things. So I think very intriguing and asks you to go deeper. Here we have the Lover's card, the Alchemical Heart. I think it's absolutely beautiful. Love this Chariot. Of course, this is my birth card. There is such a sense of movement here. There is such a sense of approaching and close up to this horse, and yet we have the black horse far away, sort of running free, so you still get that sense of this horse being willing to work in one energetic direction. This one's off running, and sort of like how are you going to deal with those different energies at play? That I think is really powerful. And he really talks a lot in the guidebook about approaching, like how you approach a wild horse and all of these kinds of things and how that plays in. This subtitle for this is Chariot of Osiris. This one felt, I like most of the subtitles. There's no chariot in here. This is the chariot, of course. But I feel like maybe there could have been a subtitle that went more with the imagery. But again, it's a chariot. I think it's gorgeous. Truthfully, it's probably one of my favorites, one of my top chariots. Love the Justice. Now, he did say in the guidebook that this is mostly based on Rider-Waite-Smith, and yet he did stay with Justice at 8 and Strength at 11, which is something that I really like because you have strength, the physical strength at 11 with the inner strength of the Magician at 1, and so I just really like that connection there, and so for me, that's something I'm really happy with. Obviously, if somebody likes them the opposite way around, I'm sorry, but most Rider-Waite-Smith based decks have them that way. There's argument in the Golden Dawn. You know, the Thoth, Crowley kept it the Marseille traditional way, Waite swapped it, so there you could still make the argument that in the correspondences to the Golden Dawn, the 8 with Justice and 11 with Strength is still very valid. I think this is a beautiful Justice card. I love the olive leaves. There is a sense of balance with the scales, but also perhaps a sense of reparation or a sense of justly managing things. Absolutely love the Hermit, the Inner Master, love the Armadillo, love that he's nested, but at the same time nested in the universe. There's such an energy of inner wisdom here that I think it's amazing. Absolutely love the Wheel of Fortune, and I don't often love Wheel of Fortunes. I can like some, but this is so akin to what I would I have a number of wood slabs like that are, you know, slices of wood that I do grids on. I have grids. My Fire and Ice Wheel of the Year is on a slab. I do smaller ones with grids. I use feathers and crystals, and so I just think it's really beautiful, natural depiction of the Wheel of the Year and cycles and shifts and changes. I love it. This one was one that when I first saw it, I thought, oh no, this probably isn't a deck for me. Like, this isn't my kind of strength. But when you read the guidebook on this one, I think it really makes sense. We have this power, masculine, fiery force here. And then you have this really the same sort of strength, but it's a quiet strength. And he reflects this being that feminine and masculine energy and this kind of face-off. And we don't know what's going to happen. Is the snake going to sort of mesmerize and calm the lion down? Are they both going to get into a fight? Like, what's going to happen here? That's up to you and up to what cards are around you, or around the card at the time. So I really like how he describes this card in the guidebook. Love this Hanged Man. The suspended monkey. He's got the mala bead. He's got the lotus kind of Om symbol in the middle of his stomach. He looks very strong and purposeful and has flipped himself and is going to gain some stay here till he gains perspective. Absolutely love that card. Love the Death card. This is the, I'm thinking it says Metamorphic. Yeah. Metamorphic moth. So we have that idea of change and transformation with the moth. We have the snake, what looks to be like a snake skeleton around, a raven's head or some type of a bird's head. Obviously the death head moth. I just think it's beautiful. Love this Temperance card with the lotus and the water, and it's the pond of balance and the koi fish here. I just think it's really beautiful and speaks gorgeously to the Temperance card, which is quite, you know, when you flip from that to the scary devil card here, the Master of Lies. This one was interesting for me. I am not opposed to devil cards being purposefully sort of creepy and monstrous type energy, because that is sort of the point, right? The point, well, for me, the point is that it's supposed to startle us into understanding that we have abdicated our power in some way. We've given our power over in some way. And then also the flip side of that, or the other part of that, is that we've also given over responsibility for our choices, even our bad choices, where, you know, humanity has this desire to create the other, or to create a monster, to put all of our "the devil made me do it" kind of energy, versus owning and taking responsibility for our choices, and understanding that, you know, very rarely do monstrous things happen from an actual monster, but it is generally within ourselves and within humanity that these things happen. And so there's a big danger to putting that off onto someone or something else, both our power, giving it to someone else, but also giving our responsibility and our our owning our own inner landscape, both good and the bad. So having a startling devil card, I think, is good in that, you know, in that sense, in the way that I read the devil card. Here we have the Tower card, the burning tree. We've got birds, right? Of course, there's another card in which the bird, I think it's a minor arcana. I'll have to see which one it is, where the bird is actually carrying the nest away from a difficult situation. So that, I think it's the Six of Swords. I don't know if there's burning in the background. Let's just take a peek because we can. Let me see if I can find it without too much trouble. I think it's the 6. Yeah. So here we have some flames here. So this could be this bird having grabbed, of course, these are birds with babies, not eggs, but there is that kind of sense of getting away from conflict there. Here we have the Star card. I absolutely love this because, I know I've said that a million times, but it's the truth. I don't know what else to say. I really love this because, again, in my own practice, the idea of the world tree and the connection with trees is really powerful. And so seeing sort of the universe and the tree and all of that, it just works really well for me. The Moon card is beautiful. I mean, it's the moon. Let's see what this title is. The Cosmic Guide, I believe. And here we have the Silver Shadow Reflects. Yeah. It's a beautiful moon card. I mean, you've got the light and you've got the shadow. You've got both aspects. I think it's really lovely. This isn't one of my top favorites just because I feel like, well, this is cute too. So let's be honest, there are some cute cards in here. I mean, that's just sweet. His drawings of mice, there's I think a couple of mice in there, is amazing. I guess a lot of these are so powerful. I mean, he's kind of cute too, let's be honest. But yeah, when you kind of juxtapose this and this, it kind of feels like, whoa. This feels very Rider-Waite-Smith, but I do love the bears instead. We've got the sunflowers of the Rider-Waite-Smith. We have even a small child or cub on the back of a horse or a large bear. So it's definitely very much Rider-Waite-Smith in that sense. But it's cute. I mean, it's definitely, I'll take it over a naked baby on a horse. But see, then you see this, and I guess, and I talk about it later, about how it's just more that juxtaposition because there's so much impact here, but then it also does show, it does actually cause that visual impact where, you know, the sense of happiness and contentment and all of that, and then we have this like intensity. I love this Judgment card. It says the transcendence. I mean, this is a determined bear, and he asks a lot of questions in the guidebook about what could be going on here. He could be out hunting, he could be struggling, but he could also just be out hunting. Right here where he's reaching is an ice floe flow he might be getting on, or something that he's attacking for food. We don't know, but the fact of the matter is there is this determination here that I love, because the Judgment card for me is a check-in card that stops and says, wait a minute, let's stop and see, how did you get here? How did you end up here in the middle of the ocean doing whatever it is that you're doing? Like, what are the choices that got you there? What are the things that happened? Maybe an ice floe broke and he fell into the ocean. That wasn't his fault. Like, really checking in with how you got there, and then being able to start the work of getting into the next life and going forward. And there's just such a degree of determination that this one, and then the Eight of Swords, just there's such a strength to them in a way that you don't usually see in those cards. That really is powerful. Here we have the World. At first I wasn't too thrilled with the net. However, you can see that everything is in harmony and balance. And so they're just swirling either down or up through the net. And so you really do get the sense of these creatures all being in sync with their environment, as you would think of with the World card. So that's the major arcana. I love them. I absolutely love, some are black and some are white. I just like the way they look fanned out. Yeah, I'm really pleased with those. Again, are they how I might particularly have depicted them? Not necessarily, but the ones, they make you stop and think, and you see it a lot more in the minor arcana. So moving into the minor arcana, one of the things to really kind of come to terms with this deck is that he doesn't go off of animal associations such as, you know, we think of tigers and foxes and things for wands, and water creatures for cups, and birds. That one always, for me, you know, I see a bird in a minor arcana and I simply think air or swords. Of course, these are correspondences that we've put onto things, right? And in some ways, I think for me even, that can be an easy, sort of an easy, okay, yep, it's a bird, it's a swords, and I don't really go deeper. Whereas because of the way that he's sort of across the board mixed animals up, not for what their species is, but for what is the card trying to portray, forces you to look a little bit deeper and see how that correspondence or that connection is there. So you definitely will see different species across the different suits. There's not a continuity where it's all one animal or one type of animal in the suits. They're all a variety of different animals, such as the Ace of Wands having a tentacle in it instead of a hand, obviously, of some animal. I find this to be Two of Wands here, and this one doesn't have anything, so this is going to stand out. The aces will stand out with being no titles. The Two of Wands here this is the lightning struck antenna. I like this two, you know, you're thinking about the two is that making the beginning of the energy, two things coming together, starting to make your plans, and all of this electric energy, again, you know, kind of bouncing off these two is going to really create that forward motion there. I think it's really powerful. Here we have the Three of Wands. Everything is sort of connected and together, and sort of all of this then is going to bring back that extra energy back. If you're just looking at traditional meanings, but I love the sacred geometry that's in here. We've of course seen several things with this type of structure in the Three of Wands because it works and it resonates. This one is the Four of Wands, the beaming vessel. This is definitely interesting, A, because it's water. B, with the beams of light coming off, it makes me think of it. I cannot remember what it is, but it's the there's a turtle that spins in the old Godzilla ones. That's what comes to mind when I see this. But there is a sense of kind of coming together and joy and accomplishment in the Four of Wands. Now, there's still much more to go. There's still, you know, swimming. They're still going forward towards that castle that we sometimes see in the distance. But in this moment, we do have this stable fire energy here. Love this for the Five of Wands, the jagged. Yeah, that one I definitely cannot can't read without my glasses. And I probably aren't going to be able to read it in here. I need to go find them. I had them, and I, of course, put them down somewhere. And, of course, once I get to know them, it's not going to really be that big of a deal. The Jagged Union. So... we often see fighting in the Five of Wands. I think this is really interesting because if you grab hold of this, you're going to get stuck. So you definitely feel that prickly energy that's there. There's still wand energy, but it's energy that has the ability to jab you just as much as it does. There could be great internal sustenance here in this kind of cactus or something. So there's a lot of different layers there, but it's going to be a prickly to get through this or get into it, whatever it is that you're trying to do. Here we have the Six of Wands. We have the Goliath hive. This is that sense of community, coming together, hard work. I like this bee community because I think he talks about the fact that you've achieved something here, but at the same time, you can't just slack off. There's still work to be done. It's a beautiful card as well. Love this because I love otters. Seven of Wands, the determined otter, like he's setting up that protection, protecting what's important, knowing what's important. Is beautiful. Love the Eight of Wands. Again, has a very traditional Rider-Waite-Smith feel, but at the same time is something so powerful about all of these sort of asteroids, shooting stars and asteroids and things coming, this kind of shower and a lot of energy to be able to grab hold of. Nine of Wands, the darkness before dawn. Very, that sense of being blocked and being a bit worn down, things falling down, but the light's coming. Like, it's coming. Hold on. I also like this for the Ten of Wands because it says the overburdened beetle, but he's still holding it, right? The tens for me are completion of the suit. That full energy of the wands is difficult to carry. There's a lot of duty behind that, a lot of burden there, but he is capable of doing it, and he is holding it up, so I love that. Here we have the Page of Wands, the moon, I think it says the moonscaped messenger. It's like a carrier pigeon at night. This is really powerful for a page, I think. He's a little, I think he's absolutely adorable with the Knight of Wands. He's the kind-hearted moose. So he's definitely, on his path and on his journey. It's not quite the aggressive, moving action that I normally think of with the Knight of Wands, but that's the most adorable moose face. And here's an example of if I were to see this and know it was a queen, I would probably think Queen of Swords because of the bird. But I really love this concept of the energy of this as the Queen of Wands. I just have to step out of that air energy and slip into the intentions here, regardless of what the animal is. This is the Cosmic Huntress. Very powerful King of Wands. The glowing white stag, of course, stags. We again have a sense of spider web being made in this symbol. So there's a lot of power to this, I think, this King of Wands. Brings us to the Ace of Swords with a snake about to grab the sword. Now, this is one of the ones that are more disturbing. When you do read the guidebook on this, though, it makes sense. There are a couple that are, I think as I say later, I believe, I think that we have an easier time dealing with uncomfortable things when it's relating to humans than we do with animals. So we have a blind otter, but it's that idea he talks about that sometimes if we can see with our eyes, we're really blind, on the inside. So we need to sometimes shut out the outer sight so that the inner sight can come outward. So it really makes a lot of sense when you read what the sort of metaphor is that's going on here. But it's definitely one of the more uncomfortable ones if you're an animal lover. The Three of Swords here, the bleeding raw heart. It's really, it's very powerful, but it's a typical Three of Swords. for a Rider-Waite-Smith. It goes with the rest of the deck, but we have the 3 swords in the heart. And so, you know, it's something that I've learned to deal with since I don't read Rider-Waite-Smith more numerologically, but it's something that can be used. Love the 4 of Swords, the sacred space. This little bunny is not dead, as I had recently in Poor Crow Tarot, but is resting in a safe zone, ready to get out into the world again when she is ready. I love this 5 of Swords. There's a lot of conflict that's going on here. Of course, you think, oh, there's this giant one against a little one, but I think, and I could be wrong, that sometimes the smaller the scorpion, the more powerful the venom, something like that. But we definitely have this mental conflict here going on that works. Here, I already showed you the 6 of Swords with the brand new journey, moving away from all of this conflict here. Now, there's also like tornadoes or water funnels out there. It's got, you know, there's this lightness between, like steady goes the course through into better space beyond. Love this for the 7 of Swords. We have this idea of thief, or is it dropping off an egg so it can be taken care of? You know, there's all kinds of things. There's a few of these cards that make me think that he also watched Rikki Tikki Tavi when he was younger, as I did. This makes me think of Rikki Tikki Tavi, the thief in the night. But it's that idea that we don't know the whole picture, right? Snakes have to eat. Snakes eat eggs. There is a cleanness, clarity in the natural world that I think that we forget about, that there is this understanding of the circle of life and the cycle of nature, and snakes eat eggs and then other things eat snakes, and this is part of the process. So is this something nefarious and evil going on, or is this just nature taking its toll or running its course? And so I think that for me is the important thing with the 7 of Swords, is that idea that we don't know the whole picture. Don't just go with your instant reaction, but maybe think a little bit deeper. Love this 8 of Swords, the Imprisoned Bear, because that bear looks so determined. I believe it may actually be underwater and like there's a layer of ice, but she's about to press through there, or she may be in water and she's going to jump out. Regardless, there's no doubt in my mind with those beautiful eyes that this bear is going to get herself out of this predicament. I love that card. Love this as well, the 9 of Swords, which is often the nightmare card. It's about overwhelming mental energy, and this wave is going to wash over this grounded sea turtle. But the sea turtle's environment is in the water, so that it can either be overwhelmed by this giant wave, or it may wash it out to sea where it's going to be able to then get its bearings. So the 9 of Swords for me is that energy of, it's a lot of mental energy. It may be helpful and it may not be helpful. How are you going to roll with this energy? 10 of Swords, you know, it's 10 of Swords for the Rider-Waite-Smith. I struggle with it, but I have to say, Wild Unknown 10 of Swords is my absolute sort of, no. And so this one I can actually deal with better, because there is a raven or a crow here that's still left alive. It's been a hard-fought battle. He's learned a lot from Ace to 10, and he's going to kind of go forward from here, having gained a lot of difficult life lessons, but also some light on the horizon as well. So as someone who reads, again, it's not because I'm opposed to darkness, but it's that the 10s don't mean that for me. The 10s are about the culmination of the suit of the mind. And so the culmination of the suit of the mind for me is not dead things. It is a sense of power. It is a sense of having learned a lot through difficulties, yes, but also through good experiences as well. And kind of come to that pinnacle of thought. Maybe it's time to start fresh way of thinking, but that's my struggle. It's not that I am against the 10 of Swords. It's just it's not how I read the number 10. But I can work around this better than the Wild Unknown, which I work with all the time. Here we have the Page of Swords, the sword-bearing sister, I believe it says. The Knight of Swords, the hooded brother with all like the little meerkats. Again, this makes me think of Rikki Tikki Tavi. the Queen of Swords, and the very interesting, again, as kind of going back to what I was saying with the Seven of Swords, we have this owl who's sort of this monster in the dark. We can't even see him clearly. When you think about how sharp that image is and how blurred that image is, this mouse did not even know what was coming until the last moment, right? But there is a sense of focus and clarity that we think of with the King of Swords, making the decision. He needs to feed himself. He needs to feed his family and his little owlets and all of that. This is what he does, and he's not dealing, he's setting the emotions aside and getting in and with clarity and focus on what needs to be accomplished. Brings us to the cups. Kind of creepy fingers here. I know these are, he even says in the book that these are animal, you know, claws, but they're a little slightly creepy. Very powerful Two of Cups with this sort of intertwined tongues, the heated sands. There's definitely a lot more strength and sexuality, I think, that's into this card, but it is a very powerful Two of Cups. This is one of my least favorites in terms of, I just don't see this as a Three of Cups. It looks combative. Their eyes even look a little bit like, you know, so it feels much more like Five of Swords or something like that versus Three of Cups. But he does talk about this as being sort of three creatures sort of working together. They all have the same sort of helmet on because they're all part of the same group or the same organization of some type. So there is a sense of unity about these three creatures. This is probably one of the few that's a bit of a stretch for me, but I will come to terms with it. Here we have the Four of Cups, which looks very Rider-Waite-Smith with the position of the cups. Luckily for me, he doesn't look bored so much as looking inward into the crystal ball. And so there is, for me, that he's able to see clearly because his emotions are stable. Because I read fours as stability and cups as emotions. So this is about stable emotions for me, because I don't, again, read strictly Rider-Waite-Smith. So this works well for me, and certainly I think somebody who reads Rider-Waite-Smith, this is very, you can see that in this, as well as this. The three dropped cups and the two upright cups are very symbolic, beautiful. The spilt regret. Here we have the reuniting water hole. So it's like they've been apart from each other and they're finally kind of coming back together and remembering when they were little hippos. But there is a sweetness here with the birds, and you know, that does have a little bit of that childlike wonder that you're sort of in this magic watering hole. Very traditional Seven of Cups, other than that we have tentacles. The tentacles of illusion, that, you know, make sure you're choosing what to put your energy and focus into things that are true dreams and goals, and not wasting that time on illusions. Very powerful Eight of Cups, kind of the high door that, you know, we often see somebody climbing up towards the moon, and this is beautiful. I do like steps in the Eight of Cups. There is writing on this. There are a couple other cards that have some writing on it that the book doesn't necessarily address those. What does that say? Which is something I would like to see, but I do need to read everything cover to cover and see if that comes up at all. Love this Nine of Cups, the contented pelican. He's got all he needs. He's overflowing. His wishes have been fulfilled. Beautiful drawing. Love the Ten of Cups as well. Joyous sky. Again, could this be also the water with a low-laying mist over the top of it? Sure. But I like the surrealness of these beautiful whales, this pod, this family just kind of dancing and uniting in the sky. It definitely has that happily ever after feel of the Ten of Cups. Here we have the Page of Cups, which is the Sister of Roses. the Knight of Cups, the brother of the wild, which is interesting. This is a stunning image. I do need to sit down and read this particular one to see how this goes in with the cups. I do kind of think a little bit of the hunt here, which is interesting because I always equate the Knight of Cups with the hunt for the Holy Grail. So I'll have to sit down and read that, but I love the image of this. Absolutely love this Queen of Cups. Beautiful. We definitely think of bears, maybe I think a little more earthy, crystals more earthy, but she's just so sweet and nurturing and skyward, the mother of crystals. And then we have the King of Cups, the Chief Eagle. Again, you would think King of Swords, right? With this, but we have the third eye open here, more intuitive and intuition that you think of with water as well. So I feel like this is just asking me to go deeper beyond those sort of those clumped up associations that I have. Finally, we have the Ace of Pentacles, the Two of Pentacles, the Juggling Snake. I love it. This is, again, with the Three of Cups, probably the one that I have the most problem with. It just, to me, reminds me of, like, Sabrina's cat, like, going through the magic door in the old show and kind of met with these three animal heads, wizards with their cloaks beneath. It's just so odd, right? It totally works. The three wise masters, he's getting to learn something from it. Works with the Three of Pentacles. But I've said, I think later I do say that I'm sure this is one that's going to follow me around and it's become one of my favorite ones, like the Seven of Wands did in the Bohemian Gothic. Four of Pentacles. I like this because it's called the Prudent Mountain Goat, because I do think for me, the Four of Pentacles is about prudence, being wise with your resources, not spending them unwisely. So this actually works really well for me. This is one of the saddest ones in the whole deck. It is so hard to see this. I was telling Patrick, I think that, you know, we have no problem, or we like it, but I think about the Japardiza Tarot, where we have, you know, somebody shivering and lying in the puddles and in the muck in the street, homeless and just cold and on the dirty ground, and that's, you know, that's sad. We see ones, you know, cripples with kind of on their crutches and sort of hobbling away, and it's sad. But we see these these horses, and it's so sad. But I do love, instead of a stained glass window, we have sort of the skies parting, and with this idea of hope that's here. They're not alone, as we often see in the Five of Pentacles. And if they're in a drought, it's about to rain. You know, circumstances are going to change. But it's very difficult to see in animals what we can actually deal with more in humans, I feel. Strong Six of Pentacles, we have that balance being weighed there. Again, not sure what that means, and I don't think it says so in the guidebook, but this is a sacred white scale bull. So we have the idea of balance and giving back here that we traditionally see. Love this Seven. I talked about this because I got this print. I love this. Patience and catches the fly. Love the Eight of Pentacles, this idea of having masterfully crafted her web that is doing its job, right? It's catching what it needs to catch. So I think that that's really powerful. Also, you know, this is sort of that artisan. We often see somebody crafting things, and spiders for me have to do with that idea of creativity. Beautiful Nine of Pentacles here. The Tranquil Spotted Doe. Sort of everything is going well here. The Ten of Pentacles, this is the Oyster of Metatron, I believe. You know, you have the Tree of Life in fully activated. There is that sense of power here, the oyster and the shell. This is certainly a sense that all is well and is going to just, you know, energy is just going to flow from here. the Pentacles are probably my least favorite of the quartz, just because of the real heavy mask like on this beautiful fox. Like I would just like to see this beautiful fox. This is a snow vixen, and I would just love, because his art is amazing, and I would have liked to have just seen the snow vixen, but that's personal preference, right? There's certainly a power there as well. The Knight of Pentacles, the Queen of Pentacles, I can't read that. The Indian henna mother. We have different, we have the Father of Roses, we have Aztec here, we have Indian here. This is just the butterfly snow vixen. And again, like I would think of tigers and cats in the wands and birds in the swords, but I do think that if you take the time to move past those associations, just a little bit of playing with this deck, I've actually quite come to already quickly say, you know, I kind of like the way this forces me to think a little bit differently. So there we have it. There are all the cards. Okay, I've taken a minute to sort of look through and kind of get a feel for things myself, because this is a deck, you know, that I'm really curious about. I also pulled some cards for me. Again, I feel like this is a deck I'm going to be personally working with a lot, so I wanted to have a moment and pull through, you know, to do the first pull of cards for myself. Whenever the Queen of Swords comes up in a first reading for me of a deck, that's like a 2 thumbs up from the universe. So that was really powerful. I've made a couple piles here to sort of sort through things that have popped to me, right? So one of the things that I have a difficulty with in some other decks is animal cards, not these, but cards, you know, like this, that are similar to the Animal Spirit Oracle deck by Colette Baron Reed, where we do have a lot of sort of these sort of headdressy kinds of things, human headdresses and earrings and nose rings on animals. It's not always my favorite factor in an animal deck, and especially in a deck where you have such powerful cards. Like these cards to me, like take my breath away, like whoa, right? But they're trying to describe a different energy than, I think most of these are court cards. Yeah, well, not all of them, but most of these are court cards. And so it's a different energy than what the court cards are trying to do. And you can really feel that. And so that, when it's used in such a way to create that sort of impact where you want the impact, I think it's completely workable there. But some of them are just like this, that literally like take my breath away about how powerful. I don't think I've ever seen a more powerful 8 of Swords, and I absolutely love it. The other thing that I had these out for, was not really just for that, but was that this deck definitely challenges our conceptions of what animals should go in what suits. And at first look, that can be disconcerting, right? We, in a modern sense, have really said, okay, you know, birds are for swords, and tigers and foxes and things like that are for wands, and you know, animal or seals or some kind of water animals are only for cups, and so on and so forth, right? We get that, you get the sense. That's kind of easy, right? That's something that's been added in. The original tarot decks did not have those associations. Those are associations that we have layered in, and certainly any animal, whatever quality that the creator's looking for, can stand in for that energy. And so I think in some ways this challenges, especially for myself, a little bit of that laziness of seeing a bird and thinking swords and not going deeper than that. So I actually appreciate that, because if I were to see this and know it was a queen, I would in my head probably instantly go to the Queen of Swords, simply because it's an owl. And yet there is a something really powerful here, especially when you read the guidebook, that this represents the Queen of Wands very well, or that a tiger has to be the King of Wands instead of the King of Pentacles, and so on and so forth. This idea challenging perhaps the easy nature of just sort of clumping animals in certain ways. And so I think that what I like is that he's done it across the board. He doesn't have anything that's just one suit is this and one suit is that. All of the animals can show up in any of the suits in ways in which it makes sense for that particular vision of that card. And so I think that that's a good thing. I think challenging things that we get maybe a little bit too easy with, and we don't look deeper into some of the meanings, is a positive thing. So that was one thing. Again, powerful. The ones that were probably the most difficult cards for me, again, Ten of Swords, simply because I don't read the Ten of Swords this way, but I can work with this, as I already said, so I'm not going to repeat myself. This is the saddest card, right, to look at. It's really difficult. I already mentioned, I think we have an easier time seeing people in distress than we do, at least for myself, than seeing animals in distress. But I do like that the clouds are parting, and or if it's in a deserty theme, I haven't read this yet, if it's in a desolation, you know, the water is about to come down. So, you know, it certainly reads the Five of Pentacles. It's just a difficult one because it's very hard for some people, including myself, to see distressed animals. But distress and difficulties like this happen in the natural world. Actually really love this one for the Nine of Swords. This one is difficult, yet when you read the guidebook, it makes a lot of sense. Whereas this is probably, of all of the cards, my least favorite, simply because it just has this weird... I keep thinking of being like in Sabrina or something, and that was the Sabrina's cat, like walked into this other dimension where these, you know, animal-headed wizards here are gonna teach him some lessons, which still work for the Three of Pentacles, right? But it's just kind of it's one of those odd ones that's just like, oh, okay, that's a little bit odd. And again, for me, the Three of Cups, this is challenging because it looks a little bit more combative for me than the Three of Cups might be. But I need to sit down and read the guidebooks because all of the ones that I've been challenged by do make sense to me when reading his vision for it. So yeah, so this is kind of what I do. A lot of times behind the scenes when I'm processing something that, like the Marielle or like some of these other really powerful decks that you know you really want to work with, it's worth the work, right? To separate out, to think about, to see how are you going to, if the deck is worth it for you, how are you going to work through that and manifest knowledge and a connection with the deck so that you can kind of get to the root of things. And I definitely 100% think this is, for me, a deck worth taking the time to sort those types of things out, because in the end, there's always going to be cards in which you have to kind of find the creator's voice in it, so you can connect with their voice, because this isn't a deck that I created to be my perfect expression of a tarot deck. This is somebody else's, and so there always are going to be those moments where you're like, okay, not sure where you're going there with that, but let's see where are you going with that, so that we can meet in the middle and I can learn something from that experience. That's the joy of working with tarot decks. So really pleased again with this Queen of Swords showing up for me in a first pull. That's definitely a good sign for me. Actually, we have some extra cards to look at. I'm going to do that really quickly. I know this is long. I'm not sure how I'm going to approach it. I'm probably going to split it. But it's a big deck with a lot going on here. Okay, so here we have Caution, the Heedful Mouse. Too cute. I mean, his artwork is amazing. I can just tell you that. Here we have the Ojibwe Catcher, the Shadow Dream Catcher. I do like that he's specified, you know, obviously Native American or First Nation tribes can be very different depending on what specific tribe. So I thought that was kind of interesting that it was Ojibwe, which is where my family connection would be too. But you have sort of a shadow catcher here. We have Expansion, the shedding snake, which is gorgeous. You know, this idea of shedding your skin and becoming something larger and better, and new life. The Heart of Goliath. This card is no more than the biggest hug and thank you from my heart to yours. No matter where you are in the world, thank you. So I think that's really sweet. Here we obviously saw what was on the outside of the box, the Karmic Release, the Sacred Karmic Deer. Powerful imagery. El Nature, the Seed of Life. This is gorgeous. I really like this idea of a wild seed. That would be one that I would be tempted to put in. Sacred Fire, the Rebirthing Bonfire. We have the Karmic Soul, Tribe. So we have this idea of family, which is beautiful with this baby whale and this large whale. I mean, that's gorgeous. The Hidden Inner Strength, the Shadow Cat, which is, I mean, amazing. I love that one. Masks, the Hidden Wolf, the wolf in sheep's clothing that you would see. The Shadow Self, the Dark Inner Swamp. This one doesn't have a name, just kind of, you know, totem. It has that sort of totemy, primal kind of feel to it. The Shaman, the Medicine Healer is beautiful. The Starseed. The Sage is really beautiful, just in terms of purifying and such. And then the Yes and the No. So some of these are really gorgeous. Again, I don't really see myself putting these in. If I were to put any in, I do like this is just gorgeous. I do like the idea of caution, but we do have caution cards, but I still like that. I love a lot of the ideas behind them. The Nature card, I love. We have a lot of fire already. I love this Inner Strength. The Shadow Self is cool. Again, I think we have cards like that. The Shaman is gorgeous, depending on how, you know, what you're doing. I love this Sage image. So I'm tempted with these, but again, I don't generally do that, so I probably won't. But I might try it and just see, or there might be certain cases in which I will put one of these concepts in, shuffle, and then see what card is on either side. And that could be a way to use these. So if I really need to work on some cleansing, I might put this into the deck, shuffle it, find out what's on either side, and get that message. Same thing with the Shaman. If I want to get in touch with that energy, shuffle that in with intention, and then pull the cards around it for a particular reading. So let me just give you an example of how you might, you know, use the cards in that way, which I think could be quite powerful. I find it's actually easier to side shuffle these than it is to overhand, just again because they are large, but it feels right for them to be large. Like I think they're supposed to be large. You know what I'm saying? It's like the Marielle or the Margaret Peterson, where that sense that it's not supposed to be something small. So I'm not going to go through too much shuffling here, but you would just go through, shuffle, right, and then you just slide your way through. And one of the nice things about the gloss is that they are very shuffly or slidey. So then you would pull cards on either side. Sorry, I didn't realize I was so zoomed in. But there we go, they fit. So then I would find the Shaman card and get the card on either side and get a message that was from that sort of ancestral shamanic energy message from the cards on either side. That would be a wonderful way that I could see myself working with those extra cards. So I just wanted to show you that. In terms of spreads and things, I'm really not going to go any further. I know this is way, you know, longer than I'm even going to know what to do with as it is. I would be using this mostly for myself, and except for, again, I can see some exceptions or certain people that I might, or certain types of readings, but for the most part I would see this as something I would be using for myself. As a general rule for myself, I'm generally pulling 3 cards and then maybe a do and a don't. So these certainly, the size doesn't keep you from doing something like that. That's something that I would very commonly do for myself. I think that a Celtic Cross, obviously you would need a much larger space than I have access to. I think doing, I know I'm using the same cards, I should try to get some other ones out there visually. But you could certainly do a elemental and do fire, air, water, and earth, and that would be really beautiful. And then you could pull one for the soul or the heart of a situation. But I think you would have to obviously have a very large space in order to do a larger reading just because of the size. And I think that's okay, because especially for myself, because I'm not tending to do readings for myself that are huge, and so I think this will work really well. And if it is, it's for myself and I can sit on the floor and do it, whereas obviously reading for others I have to fit into the camera. So there we have it. I hope this has been helpful. This is a deck from Australia, so those of us who live on the stateside, I know that this can be pricey. Shipping can be pricey over there as well, and so I hope that this has been helpful for you to be able to see that whether this is something that's going to resonate with you or not. Thank you to Goliath for sending me this deck to look at. I have a feeling that this is going to actually be quite a powerful one. And I know what's going to happen. This is what happened with me. You know, the Bohemian Gothic Tarot, which is one of my favorites. There's one card in there that's, you know, there's always that one card that you're like, you know, not my favorite. And that was the Seven of Wands, which is the little demon in a tower. And he became my favorite card. It showed up all of the time, and we became BFFs. And it's, to this day, one of my favorite cards in the deck. And it was that one card that was like, So I have a feeling that the same thing is going to happen with this one. So I'm just really excited to work with this and see where this takes me again in my personal practice with tarot. I think that this could be a real powerful one. So I hope that you've enjoyed this, regardless of length, and I will talk to you all later.